the world of mechanics, Paul's High Performance is probably the best speed shop in the country. Come inside to see what makes Paul and his company so special. All right, welcome back to Refinish Media. Gary and David, as always, is behind the camera. Today we have a special guest. This is our very first master mechanic and speed shop we had. We have Paul from Paul's High Performance in Jackson, Michigan. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. Good morning.
So, quick question before we get into stuff is, how did you get involved with being a mechanic, getting into the racing scene and the go fast? Was it something you were always interested in as a kid, or what got you into that?
Yeah, absolutely. We come from a big family of 10, so there was always something to work on. And my dad was a mechanic and a heavy equipment operator, so I was always into taking stuff apart. I think I was 6 years old when I first got my first toolbox because I was losing my dad's tools. So he goes, I'm locking mine, but here's your toolbox. It was at Christmas. It was one of those Sears that had everything in it. And he says, you lose these tools, you're not going to be able to work on anything. So that's where it started out, right there.
So when you were a kid, did you always want to be a mechanic? Did you always want to be like a race car driver and work on go fast stuff? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very competitive, family like that. You're competitive for anything, So, yeah, I always wanted to race. So I've raced snowmobiles, motorcycles, quads, dirt bikes, cars, anything, sprint cars, dirt cars, anything that went fast I was interested in.
What's your favorite form of racing that you particularly partake in?
Right now it's the drag racing. We've done the Bonneville Salt Flat, we've done top speed racing, but currently drag racing is what we're known for, and that's what we do, and that's where our passion is.
What's the fastest you've ever been in the quarter mile?
8 seconds.
8 seconds?
Yeah.
And then how about top speed? What's the fastest?
Top speed is 250.
250. Wow.
Yeah.
That's fast. Yeah, that's fast. All right. So, Jackson's not too far from Ann Arbor, Michigan, in case you don't know. And Paul's been here for 30 plus years. And, I've known about you for a long time, and I don't want to say this, but we've always known you as like the Ford guy, the go-to for Ford. I know you work on other stuff. We'll definitely get into that. But, I was doing a lot of work with Ford Motor Company, and, we were working on a couple Ford cars, and they go, well, hey, Paul, right? He's the best of the best. And even on the way over here, I called my buddy Chuck and was talking about you. And he said, and I quote, when it comes to mechanics, especially Ford, there's nobody better in the world than Paul.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you get hooked up with Ford originally?
So we had the Dyno, and I had a friend of mine that was an engineer over there, and they used to have a group called Ford Motorsport Enthusiast Group. And that group, of course, there was all about Ford stuff. And of course they knew, I had, my SS 454 truck, and I had other trucks, and I had a Monte Carlo that had a big block in it and stuff. And so they were like, hey, you can come to some of our events, even though you got, GM, anybody. So we went to the drag race, we went to car shows. And finally, they're like, hey, you know what? We need a dyno day. And so that's how it started out, with a dyno day. And a particular gentleman, Jerry Green, he brought his car over, and we ran it on the dyno. And my wife at the time says, hey, listen, this guy wants to talk to you because he thinks the numbers are wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a machine, just horsepower and torque over time and weight. It's pretty simple math. It could be a John Deere tractor on there. So he goes, I want you to run my car again. I'm like, okay. So we ran it again at the end of the day. It was within tenths of what it was during the day. So he calls me on Monday morning. I get a phone call from this guy, and he goes, hey, listen, we want you to come over to Ford. I'm like, well, why? What for? Ford Racing at the time. They said, well, we want a meeting with you. And they said, we want you over here today. And I'm like, well, okay. So I go over there, and they go, listen, we see you're into a bunch of other cars. We have different things, but we'd like you to race one of our Mustangs for us and do some driving and this and that. I'm like, well, okay, but I'm not going to buy a new Mustang today. They go, no, we're going to give you a car. We're going to give you support. Wow. But we want to, if it works out, we're going to do an 18-month trial period with you. I'm like, okay, but we want you to get, this GM stuff. We can't have that. I'm like, okay, no problem. Hey, for you Mustang, Cobra. So that's how it started out. And actually in 1997 is when that started.
Wow. So you've been with them for 1997. Huh?
Yeah.
What do we have behind us? This looks like a Mustang, but this doesn't look like an ordinary Mustang. What kind of car do we have behind us?
So this is a 2007 Celine Extreme GT Mustang. And so it's supercharged, built engine, 6-speed, and that's one of 24 of this color.
Wow.
And the owner has passed away, and now it's down to his son. It's here for some clutch and tranny work. There's only 30,000 miles on it, but it's an absolute beautiful car.
How much horsepower does a car like this produce?
I think these were rated at 550.
Okay.
So it's in that range.
Yeah. All right. So is it fair to say that you guys are a speed shop? Like, you know, you're not just a mechanic, but I mean, you guys do mechanical work, but is it fair to say you're a speed shop, or do you just classify yourself as a high performance shop, or?
High performance shop. I mean, we don't change starters and alternators. I mean, like our oil barrel, we can go a year. It's 500 gallons because it's usually clean oil that we put in there. Yeah. You know, we don't do starters and alternators. If someone's got a problem with something new or whatever, you know, we'll diagnose it or fix it. But a lot of times it's just, we never know what we're going to work on. I mean, I just last week, I mentioned earlier, you know, we had a 1957 Ford Fairlane in here.
Yeah.
You know, so we had an old Thunderbird the year before. It doesn't matter, a Buick, Pontiac, you know, it doesn't matter what it is.
What do you guys prefer to work on? Like, what's fun to you? Like, what's your perfect scenario job?
Anything that we can make better and faster and make the customer happy. That's our number one thing. It could be old, it could be new. You know, I mean, we just worked on a Triumph Spitfire. He could not get the alignment. No one would align the thing. So we've got ways to do it. So we put it on our hoist and we lined it all up 3 hours later and he was out of here.
Yeah. So, like, you know, different people have different opinions on what's fast. Like when I was in high school, and you're going to laugh, please try to not laugh at me. When I was in high school, we used to say it was 10-1 was considered fast to a 16-year-old kid. So if I had a 4,000-pound car and I was producing 400 horsepower, I have a 10-1. We always thought that was fast. And my dad used to tease us, and I can tell by the look on your face that you're not impressed. What do you consider fast these days? Like, how much horsepower is fast? Is a 400 horsepower car fast to you, or no? Or
naturally aspirated 400 horse is fun, or 500. I mean, now the numbers, I used to have a chart. A friend of mine made this chart up, Dennis Wingfield, and he was a powertrain engineer, and he calculated from 100 horsepower to 500 for me. Well, then we changed to 800. Now I have 1,500 horse chart, a powertrain loss chart. So for me, I think the newer cars with all the technology that they have in them, you know, I've got a 2022 Heritage over there. That thing, 760, it's ridiculously fast because of all the technology that it has. And then I also have a 900 horse car over there, that Terminator. Now that car, I compare it to like a Harley compared to a Ducati.
Yeah.
That is smooth, slick, fast, quiet, traction control. This car, it's rough, it's tumble, and it's fast. I would say it's probably faster than that car, but on the certain roads, you have to have the tires warm. It's got to be pointed straight. You got to squeeze it. You can't be banging gears in it. It'll just be all over the road.
For the average guy, let's say he had a 60s or 70s street car, what kind of horsepower range do you think is comfortable before you start getting to be obnoxious or just, you know, a waste of time and money?
500, 550.
500, 550?
Yeah, that's a really good number for most street cars. I mean, because of the roads, you know, and the tires. Yes, you can get faster. And a lot of customers, you know, we build a lot of 700 to 900 horse cars, but they wreck them. They don't hook up. They get in trouble with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to be a pretty good driver to be driving something like that.
You know, from growing up in the 90s, if you would have said, hey, I know this guy who built this 1,000 horsepower car, or this guy I know has a 1,000 horsepower car, I'd say you're lying. There's probably somebody in America that has a 1,000 horsepower car, but you don't know them, and it's not street legal. The 1,000 horsepower car doesn't seem like it's that uncommon anymore. Are you guys building anything like that?
Yeah, a lot of those guys, you know, they come around, and like I said, it's pretty easy with the vet. I mean, look at these Hellcats, you know what I mean? And the new ZL1 Camaros and ZL1, you know, Corvettes, and the new GT500s. I mean, they're just ridiculously fast cars right out of the box.
What's the biggest horsepower car that you've built out of here?
It was just a little under 2,500 horse, twin turbo.
2,500 horse?
Yeah.
What kind of torque does something like that?
It had almost 2,900. It was a huge 600 cubic inch twin turbo deal.
Was it a daily driver, like an economy car, like he just drove it back and forth?
It looked like an economy car.
Oh, it was a sleeper?
It was a sleeper.
Wow.
They race for money, and
How much money do you think that the guy had in the whole build car and everything?
$250,000.
$250,000.
Minimum. Yeah, and he did a lot of the stuff himself. I mean,
I know you're known for Mustangs. I know that that's not all that you do, but I know that you, in the world of Mustangs, you're really well respected and everyone knows your work. Let's say I bought a brand new Coyote Mustang and I was, 25-year-old kid and I wanted to mess around on the street. What's some small, what's the first couple things that I could do? Do I do the exhaust? Do I do a K&N? Do I do a supercharger? What's the first couple things that you would recommend me doing if I was a do-it-yourselfer?
Yeah, so that's really simple. I mean, our number one thing we do is, a cold air kit, a calibration, and a throttle body. That right there is 50, 60 horse at the wheel. And you can get that all day with 93 fuel, keeps all the emissions intact, and it makes a huge difference.
What do you think that would cost me just in parts if I was willing to do all the work myself and YouTube it and stuff?
Under $2,000,
Under
$2,500. Yeah.
Okay. What would be the next step above that? If I love that extra 50 horse and what would be the next step you would recommend?
So the next step, so all that's going to go out the window.
Okay.
You're done. That money's gone. So I would just do a supercharger.
Okay.
Of some sort, positive displacement, either a Whipple or a ProCharger.
For the people out there that, they're not big into cars, what exactly is a supercharger in layman's terms? Like, what is it? How does it work?
So the Whipple is a positive displacement, so you have two rotors,
okay,
and it compresses the air that way. The ProCharger, it's more like a turbo. It's centrifugal, so it has a gearbox in it and it inlets. So they're two different worlds. One gives you a low-end torque. The other is not so much, but they both make the same power at the end. It just depends on what you want and how you want it to progress and how much power do you want here or there.
What's it doing? Is it forcing more air into the
more air?
Okay.
Yeah. So we're at 14.72, atmosphere. So you can put in 7 or 10 pounds of boost, and it makes it like a Coyote's 302 cubic inches. It makes it like 600 cubic inches.
Wow.
Because it's just shoving that air in the engine.
So, I mean, the upside of doing a ProCharger or supercharger is obviously more power, more torque, more fun. What's some of the bad sides besides the cost? Is there any downside to
weight?
Okay.
You're adding anywhere, a couple 100 pounds, 250 pounds to the nose of the car. So, and then the other is, of course, you got to keep good fuel in it all the time. Our fuel requirements are going down, so you have to be careful there with fuel. And then, tires, and then it's wearing out. What about the bottom end? They're not designed to have another 200 or 250 horse added to them.
So it's putting a little bit more wear and tear on the motor.
That's right. It's just like a gun. You start using that thing every day, all day, putting 800-900 rounds through it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Everything's going to wear out. There's a time period for it.
So, how about turbochargers? Like, how does that work, and what's the pros of like a turbocharger?
So the thing with the turbocharger, a lot of people do, the turbos on them, and one is, you're basically using the exhaust to drive a turbine, and so on one side you'll have the inlet and then the outlet, and so the exhaust will come in, it'll make boost, and then that gets pushed to the engine.
Okay. If you, on your personal vehicle, if you were forced to pick a turbocharged car or a ProCharger / supercharged car, what would you lean towards and why? Or is it not that simple of a question?
No, I mean, because what are you going to do with the car? Is it a convertible? Because, we call the convertibles flexi flyers because they the chassis flex. If you add 250 horse to something, you're going to have to stiffen it up. You're going to have to do something with the suspension. A lot of these newer cars, they wheel hop. So you're going to want to do something there. And then, of course, the brakes are not made for another 250 horse. So there's another issue there with the brakes. But it would depend on what I'm going to do with it. Yeah, it depends on what car you have.
Okay. What if I had a Mustang? Do you lean more towards the turbo or the supercharger?
I would do the supercharger type thing. I mean, the turbo stuff is good and it's out there, but you got to deal with the heat. You know, it's 1,200 to 2,500 degrees, and where's that heat going to go? A lot of times, if it's under the hood, it's melting everything, or if it's on the bottom of the car, they're hanging down. So the floors and all that, and they're a little more. I mean, the price is about the same. They do take a little less power to run, you know, because you're using the exhaust, which is going out anyway. You're not driving it off the crank of the engine, but the heat is a big one, and then they're really tough to put on most of the time.
You think one of them has more wear and tear, or is easier to work on than the other, or no, or just different?
I would say different. The supercharger style ones seem to be a little easier. You know, you just unbolting stuff and bolting stuff back on.
Okay. People still building nitrous cars these days in 2024?
Yeah, they're still doing some nitrous. It's still out there.
Are they doing turbo and pro and supercharged and nitrous?
We have had some that want it all.
Okay.
Our particular race car, you know, we're sponsored by a nitrous outlet, so we're prone to those guys. But yeah, I mean, people are still doing nitrous. I mean, it's a way to get it done.
What's the big advantage? How does nitrous work? What's the basic concept behind nitrous?
Yeah, so you're adding oxygen to the engine that it would nowhere normally be able to ingest on its own, but you put it under 900 psi and spray it in, it's going to make more power.
Okay, and then they make different kits that range from, let's say, 25 horsepower to the sky's the limit.
Yeah, our particular car, we have a 650 horse. There's 2 kits on there. So one is throttle body, and then the other is direct injected right in the intake manifold.
So you got an extra 650 horsepower just by a push of a button?
Yeah, by the push of a button.
And when you push that button, is it just one stage where it gives it to you all right now, or does it, you know, work where we give you 100, then 100, then 100? How does that work?
Well, on our particular race car, we run fuel tech. So we can tell it exactly when we want it, how we want it, and how much and when. Okay. And it does it automatically. I just let it go of the trans brake, and everything runs off of that trans brake. It's all programmed right in. So the first one we'll stage, you know, with like 200, and then we can go up to another 400 or 450 after that.
I think I know about this. I watched Fast and the Furious, and they were always working on their laptops. So is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
And then they say NOS. I need some NOS. That's what I need. 2 big bottles of NOS.
Yeah, we run a 30-pound bottle on ours, and it's good for like 4 passes.
Okay.
But yeah, the control of it, and then of course, how are you going to control it? So with that, with the fuel tech, I mean, we control telemetry and how it comes in, when we want it to come in, and how we want it to come in, and it's just absolutely seamless. That car, our Cobra Jet, that car, we have over 300 passes spraying it.
Wow.
So control is the thing.
Yeah. How often you got to rebuild the motors in these cars?
Right now, our particular car, we have 110 passes on it.
Wow. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Must have some good mechanics behind you.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, it's good parts.
Yeah. So the OEM world, obviously everything's getting more and more computers and modules, and a lot of the do-it-yourselfer guys don't think that they can work on a lot of these cars out of their own garage. What do you see now with the modern 2024 and beyond cars? Is it getting harder for the average guy to turn wrenches?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like becoming a specialty, or like, you know, take it to the dealer, or a guy like you?
Yeah, I mean, we have to have laptops, and we have to have software to be able to work on these. I mean, to diagnose and figure out. There's so many modules, you know, like my new F450 truck over there, that thing has 36 computers in it.
Wow.
And how you're not going to just unplug something. You know what I mean? I went to do a little deal with it, and it just freaked out because it saw that I was monitoring something else that I shouldn't have been monitoring. Yeah. So the light came on.
There's a lot of guys out there that think that, like, oh, they don't build cars like they used to. And I realize cars are getting more advanced and they're getting safer and all that. But in your opinion, like, are we going too far with a lot of this electronic stuff? Is it overkill? Is it necessary? What's driving it, in your opinion?
Well, a lot of it is the safety part of it. I mean, like, most seats have 3 to 6 airbags in them. So it's a safety thing. I think what's driving it is that they're making their mandatory, making these cars safer and safer and safer, which, makes it harder and harder to work on. I mean, you guys probably see it in your line of work, with these airbags and the modules and the crash modules and all these sensors just in the bumpers. And now, you got self-driving cars and you've got these cars with the automatic cruise control. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You set it at 72 and it's going to go 72 till you let off or, change, direction or whatever. But
yeah, I always thought that stuff was lame, to be honest with you.
Well, I thought it was lame. So we're on our way back from Miami. We're pulling a trailer. We're going 75.
Yeah.
We're just outside Atlanta, which is crazy, right? So I had it on auto cruise. I really, it came with the package. I'm like, no, I don't want it. But in order to get this other stuff, you got to get this. So I set it at 72. This lady, she cuts over. I couldn't even see her license plate. I always keep my foot covered anyways.
Yeah.
By the time she cut over. By the time I had my foot on the brake, the truck had already slowed from 72 to 45 mile an hour.
Wow.
So if you think about that, I mean, it slowed that fast. So it applied the brakes. The exhaust brake came on and applied the brakes for the trailer, and it was safe.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like kind of turning. Can I turn? Can I not, get out of her way? It happened so instantly. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, I'm just kind of
okay. So
I'm just kind of a hater when it comes to all these changes. I'm not lying. I'm just kind of a hater. I ordered when the Rubicon went to 4-door in 07, I believe.
Yeah.
I was going to order one, but I didn't want to be the first one to order all the 07 problems. So I waited, and I was like, I'll wait. If the 07s don't have problems, I'll buy one in 08 because Jeeps have problems anyway. Well, I messed up, and I ordered it loaded, and I wanted to get a manual, and the wife wanted an automatic because it was technically for her. So I did, and I got remote start on it. And again, we're going back to 2007, 2008. I'm like, you don't need no damn remote start. And, living in Michigan and being able to start that vehicle, I hate to say it now. You can call me whatever you want. I love a car with a remote start, and I love a car with a backup camera now. I think I sold out and went the other way.
And you probably got a heated seat and steering wheel.
Yeah. Like the last couple of cars, like not my old cars, man. They're all manual. I did go to EFI recently, but I was a carb guy. But I was a manual. But I do have heated and cooled seats now with leather and all that stuff. But I'm getting older too.
Exactly.
But I am a hater with all these changes. Like I'm not a big fan of EV. I'm not saying there's not a place for it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do anything like that. But in the performance world of EV, do you guys A, mess around with it? B, where do you see it going? What do you not like about it?
I mean, just like you, I think there's a place for it at somewhere. We have family members with EVs, and the performance, it's there because you get instant torque. I mean, it's an electric motor. It's not an engine. It's an electric motor. So on a full charge, they rock. But, give me a regular stick shift gas-powered car to go from here to California, or Florida or whatever. But there is a place for it. Our infrastructure is just not here for it.
Yeah.
Plain bottom line. I mean, it's just not here. Our homes aren't set for it. Our infrastructure is just not ready for it. At some point, I see it coming, but internal combustion engines are going to be around for a long time.
Yeah, as long as I'm around, I know that.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Yeah, I mean, regardless what the blue-haired 18-year-old kids tell you, I think the gas motors are going to be here forever, but they can believe whatever they want. So I noticed that, I'm building a second-gen Camaro right now. I bought the car when I was 14 years old.
Nice.
I love the car, and I used to drag race with it on the street, and I'm redoing it from the ground up right now. And everyone was saying, oh, you got to LS swap it. You got to LS swap it. I had a small block Chevy in it when I was a kid, and I did put a small block Chevy back in it because I want to remember it like it was when I was in high school. What's the big lure to the LS platform? Everybody's LS swapping everything. LS is the best. In the world of Chevrolet, what is good about the LS motor, or why do people go that way?
Well, the infrastructure, one, the price. I mean, you can go to the boneyard, salvage yard and go pick up an engine out of whatever, at 6.2 and throw a cam in it and set of heads on it, and boom, you're making 500 horse. And a lot of them, they're turbo in them and, anything crazy. But they're lightweight. They're a throwaway engine, basically. You heard it. You just toss it, go get another one. And a lot of engines are like that. But I think they did a really good job. I mean, the cylinder heads and the porting and the way the cam design is, and they don't leak any oil. I mean, they're all sealed with O-rings. You know what I mean? There's no drips out of anything.
Do you think that they're, in your opinion, do you think that they're better than, let's say, the pre-86 small block Chevys and even the big block Chevys of the 60s and 70s?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, technology, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The internal combustion, I mean, it's changed a lot. They've learned a lot and they know a lot about it. So, and they have to meet emissions. So that means, and they got to make power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How many times could you get a 400 or 450 horse engine with, go 100,000 miles and not drip a leak, use any oil or anything? You know what I mean?
The big thing too that I always liked about the LS is that my little 383 stroker kit produces between 400 and 500 horsepower.
Yeah.
I think it was built right. It might be able to get 100,000 miles out of it, but that bad boy, if you drive it right, might get 10 miles a gallon.
Exactly.
Might.
Yeah.
If you're playing with it, but you take the LS counterpart, some dudes are getting 20 miles to the gallon and stuff.
Exactly. Efficiency, the cylinder head design, the combustion design, and the valve design. And then, everything's got to have a roller cam in it anymore. Did you do flat tappet or did you do roller?
It's a roller.
Yeah. You just have to, nowadays, we do no flat tappet stuff whatsoever.
What's the advantages or disadvantages of that, the roller versus the flat?
What we're seeing is we can't get a flat tappet to run. I mean, you think about our fuel now, we're up to 10%, and now they're talking about going to 15%. Some are already 12%, ethanol, and our oils are not happy with it. And especially these older engines, they're not really designed for that. And so, it just wears them out.
Okay.
The cams just do not hold up. So we do not do anything. Even this, I was talking about that Buick Riviera.
Yeah.
We did a roller cam in it.
Okay.
Just because he's going to go to shows and he putts with it and he don't really go anywhere or whatever. And I know the cam, probably in a summer or two, he'd be calling, hey, it's not running right. It'd be the cam.
Okay.
So
another thing with my Camaro that I caught a lot of flack for, and I love listening to other people's opinions. You're not going to hurt my feelings. You can rip it apart. I love it because I'm not going to change mine. I'll just be honest with you. Is I was going to put it had a manual when I was younger, and I'm putting a manual back in it. I have the original 4-speed rebuilt that's sitting there. I might put like a Tremec 5 or 6-speed in it.
Yeah.
And everyone was the LS boys, fanboys, I'll call them. They were like, you got to put an automatic in there. It'll be more consistent. And if you're going to drag race with it. And I'm like, I'm not going out to NHRA and competing for trophies. I'm pounding gears on the street. And the last thing I'm going to do is make this car electric and put an automatic in it.
Exactly.
What's your thoughts about like the whole racing scene? How it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that most drag racers that are professionals or want to be more consistent, maybe I should say, they prefer an automatic. But a lot of guys on the street, they prefer the manual.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends what you want to do. I mean, I like manuals. We raced a manual car for probably 14 years professionally. So, I mean, I like a manual trans.
I love it.
And, you talked about the Tremec deal. I mean, that new Tremec TKX, we put that in a lot of Mustangs and other cars. It's just because it's RPM related. So if you think about a Tremec, look at that TKX. Because it's made for $7,000.
Okay.
And it'll shift like butter.
Awesome.
So, and then of course you always got the 6 speeds, but that new 5-speed is that's what it's designed for. And I think it's 700 foot-pounds of torque or something. So, I mean, it's going to be enough for anything, that you're going to build. But the automatic thing, I mean, we race in a series where reaction time, you're qualified by reaction time. So yes, we've got an automatic training, but that training is also $10,000.
Yeah.
It's not some turbo 400 out of whatever. It's similar to a turbo 400. And the torque converter, the torque converter, I think was 6 or 6,800. So, I mean, it isn't just a normal tranny. Now, the new cars, these new 10 speeds that are coming out, they're phenomenal trains. Once you get them right, I mean, they lay on, the first 100 yards, it's already shifted 4 times. Well, you're not going to hardly beat that. But, you know, there's good and bad. It just kind of depends what you want. I mean, for your car, definitely a stick would be a way to go, and you'd love a 5-speed.
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where I never owned a car that was newer than me, and I never owned a car that was automatic. But then, like, I'm into Cadillacs too, like old Cadillacs.
Oh, okay.
I've owned a bunch of old 60 Cadillacs, and I don't even know if you can get a Cadillac with a manual. At least, not anything in the last 50 years. Well, some of the performance ones, but I'm talking like real Cadillacs, the big ones. But I finally have graduated to, okay, my daily driver, like my daily right now has got an 8-speed automatic, great gas mileage, good performance and stuff. But I think and you kind of tipped me to this, I think one of the things that I like about a manual is that I don't like the computers like doing launch control for me and paddle shift and all that, because basically you may not be a better driver than me, you just got better technology,
Exactly.
You got more money, where if I have a manual, if I have, an old school car, I think it's just more pure. I mean, do you agree with that, or am I
absolutely
wrong?
Yeah, I mean, it makes what I want to call them, some of these internet drivers really good drivers.
Yeah,
because of technology.
Yeah, it's funny too, because like I watch a lot of the automotive TV shows and stuff. It's like the only TV that I watch, and I see this guy with this Lamborghini, and then he races some Honda, and the Honda smokes him, and you know what the guy says? I haven't figured out my launch control. And I'm like, shut up. You just got smoked by freaking Hondas. Go sell that car. Like, you shouldn't even be allowed to own that Lamborghini.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
I mean, we got the internet. Yeah, figure it out. Or the guy who sold it to you, have him walk you through it.
Or go out and beat the shit out of it and have some fun.
Yeah.
Go out and figure out how to make all that run. I did with my GT500. It's got all that stuff. And I went out, and guess what? I burned up some tires playing with it.
What's your very first year, make, and model vehicle that you ever personally owned?
68 Mustang.
68 Mustang, wow.
Yeah, I was 14.
Was it a fastback? Or
Nope, just a coupe, 6-cylinder stick. The next door neighbor lady owned it, and something went wrong with it. And she goes, you mow my lawn and muck the horse barns for the summer, and then we'll discuss price. Okay. I think it was like $500 at the end of the summer or whatever. So I had that. But before that, my sister had a Fiat Spider.
Okay.
And the floors rotted out of it or whatever. So we jumped in that and got that running. But the actual first street car was a Mustang.
Fiat, is that Fix It Again, Tony?
Yeah.
What a Fiat is?
What a piece of crap. But we jumped it and ran around till it fell apart or whatever.
Well, whatever happened to that first Mustang? You owned it a long time or no?
No. I went on to something else.
Okay.
Fairly quick. I think I had it a couple of years or whatever, but in the winter, they weren't that great. So I was in Oldsmobile. So typically I ran a Delta 88 or a Dynamic 88 or something like that, or Cadillacs. Yeah. They were reasonable at the time when I got out of high school. So in big cars, and then I had sisters. So it was always safest to put them in some big car.
What'd you like about the Oldsmobiles? What drew you to that?
My uncle I rode in his 69 442, and that was like in 69 or 70, and I was like, oh man, a 4-speed 400, that is a badass car. Yeah. And then we lived just south of Lansing, we were on the north side of Jackson, but there was engineers around, so they would bring these Olds cars home or whatever, and so you'd get to go for a spin in these one-offs or whatever, and I just really liked the Oldsmobiles. I've had a lot of 442s. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So it's off the camera shot, and we actually have a picture. Maybe we'll throw it up in the video, and if you watch the end of the video, we actually may pull it outside and fire it up and let it run for a little bit. But this is a pretty unique car. You don't see these a lot. Can you tell us a little bit about this Terminator Mustang that's off camera right now?
Yeah, so it's they made 500 coupes and 515 convertibles of the Mistachrome. They did that for the 100th anniversary, and this is number 465. It's my daily street driver in the summer, and it's you're gonna love it when you hear it.
You ever get a ticket in that car?
No, I've been stopped though. It does have an M plate.
Yeah.
And they stopped me because the date on it. He saw a yellow tag, so he thought it was like, what, 3 years ago they were yellow.
Okay.
But really, it's good, I think, to 28 or something like that.
That color's gorgeous, man. You don't see that. I mean, one, it's a cool car, but two, that color is just a game changer on that.
Oh, yeah. That's, like I said, I've had 5 of those cars, and I really always wanted mist chrome, and this one just kind of came around through another customer, and the engine was hurt in it. He took it to some other place, and they hurt the engine, so I was only running on 6 cylinders, and to get parts for him is difficult. So he said, why don't you just buy it from me? I'm like, boom.
So earlier you gave us a tour of your facility. Awesome shop, by the way. Very clean, very well organized. You know, I grew up in a shop, and I hate messy shops. It's my pet peeve.
Yeah.
So I loved it when I came in here and everything was clean and organized. It was great. But you showed us your dyno room. And I was curious, like, you know, you were talking about how, like, 1,000 horsepower cars are not super uncommon anymore. Have you ever had a car, or obviously you had to have, blow up in there? You ever have a car grenade in there before?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen. You start running hundreds and hundreds of cars, which we've done thousands and thousands of runs for even manufacturers. We do some stuff on the side for manufacturers. We'll test stuff for them or whatever. And I mean, it's going to happen. Typically, a car comes in and there's cobwebs on it. I don't run it because it hasn't been down the strip, or there's something wrong with it, or sometimes that's why I kind of feel these cars out. You get a feel for things, you know, oh, this is vibrating or this makes noise. Sorry, we're done. You know.
Ever have any scary situations?
Yeah, we've had some scary situations, you know, with some cars. You know, we had one that was particular that, you know, the tranny broke on it, and, you know, I thought I was going to die in the thing because it, you know, it didn't catch fire, but I thought I was going to catch fire.
Yeah.
But you always are prepared for anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? I always cover the brake in the car, then the emergency brake. The guys kind of know what's going on in the dyno or whatever. And, you know, I'm not sure how many shops have done over a couple million runs either. Yeah. So there's a lot of runtime. That's actually my 3rd dyno. They don't even make that one anymore that we have. It's 4 foot in diameter and 4,500 pounds. And so
how many dyno pulls have you run?
Over 2 million.
Over 2 million dyno pulls?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, like our own race car, when we're developing stuff, sometimes there'll be 40, 50, 60 pulls, and people will go, well, why'd you do that? Well, sometimes you're looking for something. And a lot of times when we set records and we go fast, it's the small things. 5 horse here, 2 horse there, 3 horse there, or you want to learn something. You know, a lot of times, you know, we're developing a lot of parts. You know, we private label a lot of parts, and so we're trying to test things out to see what is the actual, what can you really get out of it. And sometimes it might be today you run 10 runs or 20, and then pretty soon, after months, it's 300.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're running it wide open the whole time, or you're just trying to, in a certain gear, you're looking for something or whatever efficiency.
So, I mean, obviously you've been doing this for over 3 decades, and you've dealt with a lot of, like, good and bad manufacturers. I mean, I don't want you to blast bad manufacturers per se, and I know that you wouldn't, but can you tell us, you know, 2 or 3 companies that you feel make really good products? So the guys out there that are wanting to buy brakes or EFIs or clutches or tires or anything, what's a couple, 2 or 3 companies that you feel pretty good endorsing or using their parts?
Well, the latest that I can think of is, you know, Fuel Tech. We went to Ball Ground, Georgia. We went to them. That's what we run on our particular car. Well, like I mentioned earlier, and the technology that they have is just absolutely phenomenal. And then there's tech support, because, I mean, we don't know everything, you know what I mean? And that's a fly-by-wire car, it's electronic throttle control. So to have the electronic throttle control plus the nitrous control and telemetry and wheelie control and traction control, you know, you can't learn all that overnight. We're pretty smart. We have a buddy of mine, Blaine Ramey. He's very good with computers and laptops, way better than me. I do a lot of tuning, but to understand it and look at the graphs and figure it out, I really like those guys.
Okay.
You know, Nitrous, you know, we mentioned Nitrous earlier, and you can only, right, you're one guy, you can only know so much, right? I mean, so that's why you go to these guys that you can work with, and that's why, you know, I made a cold call to Nitrous Outlet, and Dave, the owner down there, they call him Nitrous Dave, and he goes, well, what are you doing? he calculated over the phone, well, this is what we need to do. Send your intake manifolds to me. I'll do this, blah, blah, blah. And they've been helping us. And that's why we've had so many wins in the car and that we're doing so well with it, because we had somebody that understood. I mean, you can look at their catalog. There's all these nitrous, and there's all these solenoids, and you know what I mean? Do you want to take and spend all the time to do that? No, go to the expert, call them. You're not the expert typically most of the time. You got an idea what you want, but just go to those guys that know, and just, you can go to their website and look around, get an idea. Because, I mean, there's great explanations for, exactly what their company does, what they can do. Read about it a little bit, go online, check it out. Same with, like, McTraney's. I mean, we mentioned that earlier about that TKX. I mean, yeah, that's a great company. They sponsored us for several years for transmissions. That's a great company. Same thing, you know what I mean? There's technology there. And you can get them lots of different places. Nitto Tire, we were sponsored by Nitto for a long, long time for drag radials. We did that when we were running a drag radio car. You could go on McLeod clutches. We've been with them a long time. They sponsored us for a long time. And then, Ford, a lot of their parts are engineered. You know what I mean? They're coming from a factory part, and you can go over that. And when you get that part, you know that it's going to fit. The instructions are online, because we do a lot of the crate engines. Yeah. And a lot of those, those crate engines can go in on all kinds of stuff. Same thing with GM. You can get that GM drop-in crate package, and boom, we just did a Jeep here last summer. And I mean, we bought the engine and the tranny, we dropped it in there, and we hooked up the wires, boom, plugged it in. I tuned it on the dyno, and he was done. I mean, it all was plug and play, and it worked perfect. And then there's diagnostics with it. You got to have DTC codes if something goes wrong with it or whatever. Yeah,
you made a good point earlier when we were off camera, and it's funny because I think this might upset a couple people, but I'll say it anyway. Is you tend to lean towards OEM parts or proven companies and stuff, and we've had the same problem too. It seems like there's a lot of like Chinese knockoff garbage out there that, yeah, you'll save $100 on the front end, but it ends up costing you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in just headache and redoing it again. And everyone always just looks at the price up front, and you nailed it on the head where, where is it made? Is there any kind of quality control? Is there any kind of support? Are you seeing more and more, forgive me for saying this, Chinese junk floating around out there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we used to, even certain companies we used to buy just standard parts from or whatever. Now there's like 4 versions of that part. It's the same part. If you want to put this part on, like a suspension part or an electronic part, you want to spend the $25, but the real one is $75 or $50. I only want to do it once. You know what I mean? To redo it again and then redo it again, or have a problem with a suspension part or electric part later, you just lost all your value and the money, and then the car is down or whatever. I just want to do it one time, regardless of the expense.
The bad thing, I mean, the cool thing is we have the internet. We can figure out anything yeah. if you're willing to put the time in. The bad thing is, and I'm not going to mention any names, a company that I may have been aware of 10 years ago. They were a great made in America company. I liked their parts, and I was super successful with them. Well, now fast forward 10 years later, they sold out to a group that sold out to a group yep. and then they shipped everything to China. So you almost kind of, really buyer beware and double check some of the stuff, because things trade hands so fast. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes we just can't even keep up with it. I mean, some of the, these companies, they're buying companies. They used to sell frozen chicken. Yeah. And they're buying, this company that's making distributors or brakes or suspension parts or transmission parts or blocks or heads or whatever. You know what I mean? There's a lot of the knockoff. You have to be and not all this stuff is bad, but you got to know what you're buying, and is the value there for what you're going to get. And a lot of times it's just not there.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. So here's a tougher question for you.
Okay. Here we go.
So, do you like the LS better, or do you like the Coyote platform better, or why?
Well, I don't know if I have the preference, of course, look at, we got Mustangs around. So the Coyote, when that came out, I mean, that was a game changer, big RPM. And now look at them. They're producing a 500 horse. Still, today, they're producing a 500 horse car, and that thing rocks. I mean, 500 horse, and it's got warranty, and it revs to 7,800 RPM. I think that's phenomenal for what it is for 300 cubic inches. To get that kind of power out. Remember the old straight 6-cylinders were 300 cubes. Can you imagine getting 500 horse? What you'd have to do out of one of those?
Yeah.
There's no way. But the LS has their own they have their own following and their own deal. I mean, they're great engines. They don't leak oil. They're easy, fairly simple to work on. Parts are like forever. I mean, when did they come out with the LS?
96.
96. That's a long run.
Yeah.
Compared to the Coyote, which was 2011.
I mean, we don't speak the same language, unfortunately, so please forgive me. What makes the Coyote so special? Remember, I'm not a mechanic. What makes that Coyote? I mean, because people just go crazy for it. It's like a breakthrough. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It was a game changer to a lot of people. What is so much different than that 5.0 than the V8s to the 5.0 before it?
Well, there was only so much you're going to get out of that, and then it's RPM related. That old one. I mean, in a production car was all done at 55, 5,800. Yeah, it went to 6 or whatever. Well, these cars just start waking up.
Okay.
The production cars are 7,000. And then in that same version of car, the GT350 is 8,250, and it's still making power at 8,250. And some of these guys are spinning them. We go to the track a lot. Some of these guys are spinning them to 95 to 10.5.
Wow.
RPM. So they're RPM related. It's small cubic inch and tiny bore. It doesn't have a 4-inch bore. It's just got a 3.5-inch bore. So it's all small. It's 32 valves. And so a 4-valve per cylinder. I mean, you look at all the fastest cars in the world are 4-valve.
So let's bring the Dodge boys in here.
Okay.
So what about the Hemi? I mean, if you wanted a street race, if you wanted just to have fun on the street, I mean, obviously Coyote over LS. But what about the Hemi? Would it be Coyote or Hemi for you, and why?
Well, and then the Hemis are great. I mean, look at what they did with the Challenger and Charger cars. Those things rock with a blower on them. I mean, them things, they have awesome torque. Now, are the parts available for them like they are the LS? No, LS is number one in parts. No doubt about that. Coyote is behind that. And then I think the Mopar stuff is behind that.
Seems like it's always been that way, hasn't it?
Yeah,
like Chevy's always traditionally been cheaper, more available. I mean, you could go to some guy's pole barn, he's got like, I got a 454 back here and a 409, and I got,
Yeah.
But then the Mopar stuff always seemed like it was more expensive. Like even restoring old Mopars and stuff.
Oh yeah,
they're hard to work on.
Same thing. Pontiac,
Buicks. Yeah.
I mean, that guy spent. We talked about that Buick Riviera. I mean, I think that cam was, by the time we did the lifters and the kit and machining and everything, I think it was like $3,200.
Yeah.
For that, but he's never gonna have to touch that thing again. I mean,
And at least one of the things I always liked about the BOC, the Buicks, Cadillac crowd is, and again, I like Camaros, I like Mustangs, but they're catalog cars. You go to a car show, there's 50 of them.
Yeah.
If you roll up in a 1953 Cadillac Eldorado, I mean, they only built like 400 and something of them.
Yes.
You're not going to see another one on the show. So, I mean, I'm not saying that they're better or worse, but they are more unique.
Yeah, for sure.
The bad thing is, like you said, the parts do cost more money. They're harder to work on. There's less experts out there, if there is such a thing.
That's true.
Out there.
Yeah.
So the Hellcats and stuff, what is their like claim to fame? Because it seems like, if you jump on the internet, everyone's drag racing the Hellcat. Is what was so special about that motor?
Well, they did a great job with that. I mean, that was one of the first cars you could run and run and run and run, and it would do the same number. It didn't get heat soaked. Yes, it would finally slow down, but turnkey, boom, that car out of the box, because that had a lot of features in it to make the thing launch. It made a mediocre driver into a lot better driver, like we had mentioned earlier. Those things they're great out of the box.
You think anybody's ever gonna take like a Hellcat motor and put it like in a sand rail or something?
Oh, they've already done all of that. Yeah, there's.
I heard there was a dude in Jackson, Michigan, who took like a sand rail and put a Coyote motor. You know anything about that?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we did a sand rail.
So what? Tell us about your sand rail.
So the sand rail we built for a customer of ours, Albert Bancroft, and he just wanted something badass to the bone. I'm like, we got to do a Coyote. He liked Fords. You know, their whole family went back to the 40s with Fords and all their trucks and all their stuff at the farm and all that. They're all Ford. And he decided, I want to do a Coyote. So we did that with a blower on it. And that thing is just absolutely wicked. It's 900 horse and it just flies.
So a Coyote motor wasn't enough. They had to put a blower on it?
Yeah, we had to do a blower.
And how much horsepower?
900 at the tire.
What does this thing weigh roughly?
I think it ended up being, it's a 4-door, and we had a lot of safety features in that. A huge cooling system, for the intercooler, and the other was all custom made stuff. I think it was 2,600 pounds or something like that.
Does he go to like Silver Lake?
Silver Lake, yeah, and out west.
Okay.
He goes out west with it. It's got 3 foot of travel.
Does that thing shoot some wicked rooster tails?
Oh, yeah. It just to the moon. Actually, these railroad tracks over here,
when
he came to pick it up, we had street tires, BFGs, 35s on it, and he jumped those railroad. He went flying north, sailing.
That's awesome.
A sequential 5-speed trans. So there's no, it was clutchless.
And I know you're big into 4-wheelers and motorcycles and snowmobiles and racing and stuff. Do you ever go up to Silver Lake and mess around? Or
Oh, yeah. I still do. Was there last week.
Okay. What's the for people who don't know, Silver Lake Sand Dunes in Michigan is iconic. I mean, everyone from Michigan knows what it is, and a lot of people not from Michigan knows what it is. But what is the draw to the Silver Lake Sand Dunes?
It's only 480 acres or something, so it's not that big. But where can you go swim in Lake Michigan, which is just absolutely wonderful? It's
gorgeous.
It's gorgeous there. There's all kinds of stuff to do around there. And then you got the sand and the motorsports thing. I mean, it's a great place to go, just even watch or just check stuff out. But I've got a LT 500 Suzuki I drag race, and then I got a Banshee that I drag race.
Banshee.
So,
wow.
I don't think you saw that
in a long time.
It's bad to the ball.
I love those Banshees.
Oh, yeah.
Those things are bad.
It's over there.
Remember the 500 Quadzillas?
That's what that is right there.
Yeah. That was the 2 big ones when I was a kid. But we were always I like the Hondas, but like the Banshees were.
Yeah, I have a Honda 250R too.
Yep, 250R, 250X, and then they went to the 300EX, and then they kept going.
2 strokes. I got all 2 strokes.
2 strokes.
Yeah.
So you still ride? You still race?
Yeah.
You ride street bikes too?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Harleys, cross rackets, or anything?
Buells. I kind of like Buells and BMW. Those are my 2 that I go through, and then I got a little Grom that we run around at the track with or whatever, know. But, yeah.
If I wanted to get a hold of you to do a build or to pick your brain or whatever, what would be the best way to get a hold of you?
Email. Yeah, I mean, the phone, I'm surprised it's been this quiet this long.
Yeah.
Phone, I mean, I've been here on Christmas Eve or something, and the phone rings. Yeah, I got a whatever. But email is the best.
What's your email?
So it's paul@paulshp.com.
Okay. And then, obviously if they, and we'll try to put the email up on the screen and stuff. But, I mean, obviously you could find Paul's High Performance, and you're in Jackson, Michigan, if they wanted to track you down or whatever.
Easy. Yeah, it's easy.
You're not hard to find. What kind of projects you got going on right now?
So right now, I mean, we've got, you can see that gray car back there. That is a complete 5-lug swap, tranny swap, carb swap. We've got this car behind us we're working on. We got another Celine we're doing. And then, of course, these Godzilla swap stuff. So I make actually 14 parts I private label for Godzillas. We do a dual roller timing chain, a single. We do some oil pump stuff, some delete stuff for the Godzilla engines. Is kind of what our latest thing is that we're working on is those. So that's if you don't know, it's a 7.3 liter. It's in the Super Duty trucks and in the vans. So it's a truck engine, but it's a push rod. So it's got a little over a 4-inch bore. So, I mean, it's really nice for torque.
What other kind of projects you got going on right now? Any racing stuff?
Yeah. So, working on the race car. We got the Cobra Jet there, and we'll be going to Norwalk, Ohio. So we follow a series called NMRA and then NMCA. and we race open comp there. So we've already been to 4 events. We've already gone almost 10,000 miles already. We're still top 10 points. We've been number 1 qualifier. We run it up in Gainesville, so we're doing all right. We got a crew, that I go with, and a lot of times, something we didn't talk about, but this didn't come by myself. It's a lot of help, as you know, running a shop and doing all this. There's a lot of infrastructure that it isn't just about Paul.
Yeah.
There's a lot of help from the mail guy to the UPS guy to even the garbage, whatever, just keeping stuff clean and keep things moving, the phones, the internet, just getting, and then friends. I've got a lot of friends in this industry that we can talk to and bounce stuff ideas off of. One of them is Chris Johnson from JMS Motorsports, a good friend of mine, and we it's good to have mentors and family and friends that help you out with this.
Absolutely. I did have one more technical question for you.
Okay.
We were talking about it a little bit. I mean, you've worked on a lot of cars. You're super experienced, so it's rare that I or the people watching this get somebody with your level of expertise. Is it seemed like everybody was going from carbureted to EFI, and now it seems like some guys are actually going backwards with that. And I don't want to say backwards, but are going back to carb. Where are you on the EFI carb thing?
There's a place for it. If you do the OE type stuff, drop-in stuff, it's plug and play, and it's perfect, just like if it was an OE. So you have all the diagnostics, you have all the pins and the connectors and the computers. They're just like dead right on because it's factory stuff that they're using.
Yeah.
So that stuff is really good, but there's still a lot of place for really, really good carburetors.
Where's that? Like the hot rod guys? Or?
Yeah, the hot rod guys or street guys. A lot of times we just had a car in here. Actually, it was a 440 CUDA stick shift car, and he had a carb on there, but it was an old school carb, and from the 60s.
Yeah.
And it was always acting up, and it's kind of wore out and this and that. So we just bought a new carb from we ordered one specialty just for that. AED makes them, and Brawler does too, but AED are our go-to guys because they're very specific, and if you don't have something right on your tech card, they'll call and talk to you about it, exactly what you have, and you put them on and they're dead crisp and they work perfect, and they're good for our new fuel that we've got now. There is, yes, you got to pump it twice. Okay, big deal.
Yeah.
You fire it up. They got electric chokes on them now, but they run perfect right out of the box.
So a lot of those EFI kits now are like, I don't know, by the time you get the distributor and everything else, they're
Exactly.
$2,000 up. What's a good carburetor cost now?
You can spend $700 to $2,000, depends on
So
what it
less
is.
money.
So it's less money, and then just do a drop in, ready to run MSD distributor, and boom, and a carb. It's simple.
Yeah.
It works good. Feed it 12 volts. The other thing I might mention about the carburetor thing is a lot of mistakes are made there. One is fuel pressure, and two is there's no return on them. So we always put a return, with this new vapor content and, all the additives they have in our fuel. If you spill a little bit, it's gone within seconds. You can't even wipe it up. Well, it's vapor. It's, so, these older cars don't typically like that. They run hot, especially at shows and, putting around with them or whatever. So we always put a return.
I like that. So
I
you
put a
you do
return.
supply and the return on everything.
On
Really?
everything.
Yeah.
On everything.
I
Yeah.
like that. And then I would imagine that carburetors operate at a lot lower PSI than EFI too, like with the fuel lines.
Yeah, it's 5 to 7.
5 to 7 pounds.
Yes.
And what's most EFI?
50 to 60.
Okay, so a little safer.
A little safer,
right?
yeah.
Especially for the do-it-yourselfer guy.
Yeah, and then the lines, you don't have to worry about the lines and all the fittings. We typically do fittings, and, we do PTFE line, or like a carbureted deal, we always do steel. And we'll do, and on the, on the ends, we'll take our own fittings on there or whatever, or you can use push lock. A lot of the push locks are good for 100 PSI, so you're never going to be there.
Okay.
And then
You don't just buy it by the roll, like brake line, just roll it out and just kink it, like, or the rubber, and just, no, that's not how you do it.
No,
Maybe we've been doing it wrong all these years. Cool. All right. Well, hey, we appreciate you coming on today. That was awesome.
Yeah.
If you need to get a hold of Paul, you can check him out on his website. You can email him. You can call him. Gary from Refinish Media, David behind the counter, and thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks.
Wow, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much. If you like what we're doing here, go ahead and click a like. You can follow us. In the future, we're going to release more videos, all on automotive content, so look for us in the future. Thanks for watching.